Hello and welcome to week 4 of classroom management. So this week we are going to talk about student engagement, which is honestly one of my favorite things to do in the classroom, but it's also one of the most challenging to really teach, and because you have to find your own way. So I'm going to give you strategies, but ultimately it's up to you to figure out how are you going to engage students, because my way might not be how your style of teaching supports. So first we're going to talk about what is student engagement. So definition: engagement encompasses behavioral, emotional, and cognitive. So you want all of those within a lesson to truly have a student engaged or actively participating in their in the lesson. So why does it matter? I mean, simply because it increases learning outcomes, clearly, but it also improves retention, positively motivates, and expands satisfaction. So students want to come to school when they're engaged. It's not this, all right, today we're going to do this. I'm sure that you've had teachers that were engaging and you wanted to go to their class, even though, yes, it is school. But if you have that engagement and that relationship, which we previously talked about, students want to be there. So behavior drastically decreases and your students will perform better. So what influences student engagement? So based on research, the relevance of content to students' interests and goals. So that could be their interests. So you could put in, if you have soccer players, put in about soccer. But honestly, I did a lot of stuff that interests me because I was able to talk about it. For instance, I love to fish, and I've told you this. So I would put in there about fishing, or I love Florida State University. So I would put in some basketball clips because that pulls in sports, but it also is what I want to. So they're able to see you in a different way and have conversations that are not just surface level. The clarity and organization of course materials. If things are way out of whack or they can't seem to understand the flow, then they're not going to be engaged. Teacher presence, feedback, encouragement, and scaffolding. If you are there for the right reason as a teacher and giving them feedback, encouraging that it's okay to make mistakes, but we got to learn from our mistakes and how to do things and not just, here's a worksheet, here you go. But if you are actively helping them and kind of that support system, then they will want to be there and more engaged. So also having student choice. There's many times that I would say you can do this or this, but give them 2 options. Don't give them a whole bunch until you've really scaffolded having those choices. I would say for a project, you can either write it out or type it. Simple things, but it gives them like, oh, I'd rather type it or I'd rather write it. There was another thing with making products for social studies. I would give them parameters and then I said, let your creativity run wild. That way they have that ownership and they are truly engaged because they want to be proud of what they're creating. And then allow for social interactions. This was one of my biggest things that I didn't do my first year because I was apprehensive about, if I let them talk, are they going to be quiet so that I can talk again? So we were very quiet. And now when I'm in the classroom, I do a whole lot less talking, and you probably have seen that in these videos. I don't talk a whole lot because I want you to really think about and challenge and ask questions. That's how I structured my classroom after I got over that initial fear of letting go a little bit. But you have to scaffold it. It was, I talk, you talk, I talk, you talk. I mean, back and forth. It was, my principal called it ping pong match. We were back and forth talking, but that's what worked for me in my classroom. it wouldn't particularly be the best for maybe an ELA structure. But in math and science and social studies that I taught, we were able to have those conversations. And they were able to have group work. Now, group work is not a time for you to go sit at your desk and just do whatever. It's a time for you to be the facilitator, walk around, see what they're doing, ask probing questions, guide them with that. Here are some challenges and barriers to engagement. So, limited nonverbal cues. My students knew if I looked at them and they were not on task, they knew. There was many things that it was just like they knew just from a look. But that's them knowing me and me knowing them. Technology issues, yes, that's annoying. But I would always be very transparent when something was going on so they knew. But usually that's when you lose classes, unfortunately. And those are things you can't exactly avoid. Students feeling isolated, lack of belonging. So I did not do a lot of pick your own partners. We did group work almost every day. But I did not allow them to pick their own partner just to ensure that I didn't have students left out. I made them either, because we were in groups of 4, you work as a table or 2 and 2. That was it. But I also did change up seats every 2 weeks. So they knew if they didn't particularly like their group, then they knew they were changing up in 2 weeks. But that helped having that sense of belonging and motivating them because they knew my expectations, but also we weren't doing friends and then the drama, all of that. And then overwhelming course load, making sure that they know exactly what they need to get done. So I always went over it, gave an example, but also gave some sort of visual directions, parameters, whatever it might be, just so I could say, wait, what does our direction say? That way there was no sort of confusion. Poorly paced content. We were constantly go, 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 go. When you walked in my door, you were doing something, and we were basically doing something until you left. And that helped with engagement. You didn't have time to go into la la land, as I called it. And they knew the expectations. Next are strategies. So strategies and best practices. So build that relationship with your students. Allow them to have choice in the format or how they're turning it in. Don't give them too many options, like I said before, but really try and give them that ownership. Then frequent, meaningful feedback. If it takes you 2 weeks to give back grades, they've forgotten about it. You have to stay on top of your grades. And that will help with the respect factor and all of that. Making content relevant. We've already touched on this a little bit, but make it real world. If you are bored as a teacher getting up there teaching every day, then they are bored. So don't make it boring. There was many days I was like, oh, I'm excited to go to school. Not many teachers say that. But I was excited because I wanted them to do that investigation. I wanted them to be eager and to learn this material. And then just to be active in having those collaborative groups. We've already kind of discussed that. So then some of the techniques are hooks and attention getters. So as soon as the lesson starts, you want to really hook them in. It's not just, today we're going to talk about fractions. Give them a little video. There's one about cutting cakes with different celebrities. I did that one literally every year, and my kids thought it was the coolest thing ever. I mean, it's still about fractions, but it's not me standing up there saying, today we will talk about fractions. brain breaks. I didn't do so many of these in the upper elementary just because we didn't have time, but giving them a chance to, all right, let's take a breather. We good? And then come back together. And then non-traditional question formats. So giving them more of those scenarios, that real world application. And then we always had some sort of game. If I had 5 minutes, 10 minutes left in a class, then I would pull up quizzes or a Gimkit or Kahoot, any of those, and we would play. And yeah, they were playing, but they were also reviewing previous content. And they stayed engaged throughout. But the biggest thing is engagement is a clear indicator of how your students are going to behave. Designing course structure for engagement. So again, these go kind of hand in hand with what we are talking about. Clear pacing and scaffolding, making sure that you have small tasks built in, but it's not so overwhelming, but they have examples. You can also kind of, if you see that students are behind or ahead, then you can adjust deadlines and to make sure that you are accommodating all of those students. But design your course to really help with students and the success of them. So I'm going to show you a few pictures. And yes, I was one that kind of went above and beyond with engagement. So here are some pictures. They were having to do a sort. And they had to pull it out of mud. And so you can see some of the task cards. And it was a sort. It's an easy thing, but I just put it in dirt. Then, because we did science, you can see from this, I gave them lab coats. I got a grant one year for lab coats for all of my students. So whenever we had an investigation, this was a different year, they wore lab coats. Simple things like that, but they were truly engaged. This was another science experiment with predator and prey. If you're in my science class, then you will do this activity. But there's many different ways to make them engaged instead of just talking about what is a predator, what is a prey. Actually have them act it out and go through scenarios like they are here. They're having to get different kinds of noodles in a few minutes, and then we talk about population and all of that. Then here's me holding a sheep, a baby sheep. I use this picture all the time just as a way to get them engaged. And, oh gosh, I didn't know you did that. I mean, a lot of these students are like, oh, they just live and breathe teaching. They should see you as a person. And then here are my anchor charts. But during the holiday, we were allowed to do Christmas at mine. I had stockings for them. So it was a way to engage them and build that relationship. Most of these students did not have stockings at their house, so I made them for them and they could take them home. But just giving them those relationships and engaging them. They wanted to be there during Christmas time. If you are working with certain demographics that might not be as well off, the holidays are hard because they know what they think holidays should be and they don't get that at home. So a lot of behavior issues happen during that time, and I'm just being very transparent. But this is a way to engage them. No, you cannot provide a Christmas like we would like for each and every one. No, but we could do a little surprise for them. So again, you have to find what works best for you and how you're going to engage students. But the biggest thing that really helped me to engage students was, if I'm bored as a teacher your students are going to be bored. I mean, you can tell in this picture in the background, these students, even though they're not participating, they are really engaged. They are counting their noodles that are in their cups, and they are looking, they're not off playing. I mean, you can see in all of these, they are really engaged in what they're doing. But make it fun. Be that teacher that you wanted when you were in school. So if you have any questions, please let me know. I am here to help and support in any way. I was very crazy creative teacher, and so I would love to help you in any way possible. Again, let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.